a little bit of fake it till you make it. So, if you're looking for bigger contracts and bigger client wins, just try and make yourself look like and behave like a business that's already where you want to take your business if part of your ambition is to grow.
I think Manchester's littered, isn't it, with like these success stories that almost no one's heard of, and then you're like, how has no one heard of that? And of course, people have. It's just that I'm ignorant. But there seems to be like Manchester seems such an amazing hub for creativity and for business, and so when you unearth these stories, and particularly from someone like Dez, who carries that kind of same. When you meet someone who you feel like they're a kindred spirit and they fit in this room really well, and that's typically why I invite them here. But he's one of those, and so I really wanted him to share his story with you. It's super inspiring. So we're going to hear about his journey today, and I hope you'll really enjoy it. But also, Dez is pretty generous with his opportunities, and there's a number of things he's involved with at the moment that do require the kind of gifts in this room. And knowing him a little bit, then the trajectory of those businesses mean it's going to need more and more and more of those things. So do connect. He's given permission for you all to connect and keep up to date with those opportunities, because they'll come thick and fast, I have no doubt. Because success seems to follow this guy around, as we're about to hear. And so, Dez, why don't you just give us a picture of where you're at now? What roles are you fulfilling?
Well, first of all, I just want to say 10 years ago, I wish there was a community in the setup like this, because I was a freelancer and a very lonely place, and someone who's was looking for people like you. I didn't have anywhere to go, so I actually think this is a really valuable, and I've actually feel quite inspired seeing the quality of the work. Absolutely outstanding. It took me back to when I owned a digital marketing agency and we were doing storyboarding, voiceover artists. It was all coming back to me, and it was a challenging time in my life, but I was actually really proud with some of the work that we produced and the people we met. So where am I now? Unfortunately, I'm 42 in 4 weeks' time, 3rd of May today. As you can tell, I'm not from Manchester, but Manchester is my home and has been for the last 15 years. I was brought up in the Midlands and I moved up here, and I live over in West Didsbury, which I don't know if any of the creative people knock about on Burton Road. But yeah, that's where I am. From a business perspective, I've recently sold a business called Bloom, which I'll talk about later on. And now I'm a serial investor, but I'm quite picky really, because I only back things that I'm personally passionate about, and part of the reason for that is I've got no kids, don't plan to have any kids, so I'm not after like generational wealth. I just want to have some fun and get involved in things that suit my lifestyle, in complete honesty. So what that currently looks like, I'm a co-investor in Bloom, which is now called the Fletchers. It's part of the Fletchers Group, alongside a really large private equity house that used to own Dreams, the bed company. They're called Sun Capital. So I'm an investor there. And I'm an investor in the Travel Scene Group, and Travel Scene had a podcast yesterday with Don McGregor, who's the co-founder of Social Chain with Stephen Bartlett, and that's a social media-led travel business. And we've just launched a business called Fight Division, which is a social media platform for up-and-coming combat athletes, which is all content, social media, creative driven as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, busy guy, as you can hear. Where did it all start? Take us right back, because I know that's a fairly foundational.
Yeah, so I think with a lot of founders, there tends to be a tough start in life, and I've got to a stage in my life where I'm happy to sort of share this now, but I was abused as a child, and that led to me being, as a young boy, in and out of foster homes. And I had a really lucky break. I was about 6, where I got fostered by a family, and my parents now, Chris and Al, took me and my 2 brothers on, who were younger than me. And at that stage, I needed stability, love, affection, and some discipline as well, actually. And they did probably the bravest thing that I've ever known anyone do, was they gave up fostering. They've already got 2 of their own children who are older than me, Paul and Debbie, and they decided to um, adopt us. And why that's quite a memorable thing that's happened in this country, we're talking the late 80s, and me and my brothers were the first Indian family adopted by a white family in the UK. And that's probably the best thing and the luckiest thing that's ever happened. And yeah, and it was a significant switch because my biological parents, my dad passed away, mum was very, very poorly, was Sikh. And I went from traditional Sikh living in Warsaw, not eating meat, to move into an area which is 99.9% white. And all of a sudden, Sunday roasts were like a thing. And I'm like, I don't eat meat, I don't eat meat, I don't eat meat. I know I eat meat. So yeah, it was probably the most special thing that anyone's ever done, and I wouldn't be here today. Literally wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. So,
But that, just to give some context, because they weren't particularly affluent family, were they?
No. So where I was brought up was probably the first or second largest council estate in the UK, a place called Chasetown in Burntwood. You've probably never heard of it. Junction 12, the M6. Next time you're there, it's 3 miles up to the left. And yeah, I mean, my parents, dad worked in a concrete factory, mum brought up the kids, very traditional, and they brought the house off the council. Still live there now, mid-terrace property, don't have any central heating, won't let me put central heating in. And yeah, they're driving me
still
insane.
now.
They're driving me absolutely, which is a completely different topic in itself. But yeah, I mean, back then, I think probably a lot older than you guys, but there was the National Front, which, we should reinvent themselves every however many years, the British National Party and everything else. So it was a challenging time for that. And yeah, my mum and dad weren't particularly, people weren't particularly fond of what they were doing because they got all of a sudden 3 brown boys and they're white. So, but anyway, they just did it. They didn't see colour. They just saw, kids in need.
Do you remember that transition from?
I do. There's parts in my life I've just blocked out because the early days were tricky. I remember the first day that we were sort of brought in to this new foster home, and the social workers were absolutely fantastic, and just little things. I mean, they put a knife and fork out, and I was used to eating with my hands, so it was just things, and then it was, calling them Chris and Al, and over a period of time, you start calling them mum and dad, and obviously we don't look the same at all, but there were sort of special moments that happened then. And then, they took me to, they've still got a caravan in mid Wales, they're there now, and they've had it for like 45 years, and just seeing animals. And then, yeah, I didn't go to school until I was about 6 or 7, so I was just in and out of foster care, so I'd, tried to catch up as well. And yeah, so the primary school side of it, I suppose, just having that foundation at home, and mum and dad were really strict. I wasn't allowed to, go out into the parks and stuff. I used to literally climb out the window to sneak out, and they were very, very disciplined because I think they knew, this could have ended quite badly. So primary school was a decent experience, and then high school, you end up with people from different schools. You all get together, and I was just with the wrong crowd, and yeah, I didn't do well at school. I was suspended multiple times, did things I shouldn't have done. Failed a lot of things, and I was never going to go to university. I'm not an academic, and yeah.
So you leave school with any qualifications, or?
I left school, I still don't know how, 2 C's, 4 D's, an E and an F, and because my parents are very working class, no one in our family, the whole family, has ever been to university. So it was sort of get a job, start paying your board as quickly as possible. And it was that discipline, it was that work ethic actually, because they never felt the family was good enough to go to university, and they still carry that sort of now really, which is something I try and change, but it's quite difficult. So yeah, I ended up just with manual work, factory work. I used to work at a company called Manor Vinegar, screwing tops of vinegar bottles for 8 hours a day, which you can imagine was exciting, especially when you got cut. So yeah, and it's still going. It's like prison.
So next time you're waiting for After Effects to render, just think you could
Yeah.
be screwing tops on.
Or in that queue in the coffee shop in the morning. So yeah, I sort of just jumped around really. It was all very manual blue collar work, and yeah, and I suppose again my sort of lucky break really was I was picking and packing nail varnish in a wholesaler called Grafton International, and there was always people that used to walk past me in suits that used to go upstairs, and I used to just visualize one day I could be that person that could walk through in a suit and walk upstairs. And the people upstairs were people in sales, and the main sales manager, Sarah North, used to smoke a lot, chain smoker, came outside however many times a day, and I thought, one day I'm going to just speak to her and pluck up the courage. And went up to her, said, look, I know you guys see us as like them and us, we're like the warehouse monkeys, but I'd love an opportunity one day to work in sales. What experience have you got? Well, not a lot. I've worked for Stay Bright Windows, I worked for, Dixon's, the retailers, and, but I'd love, if you could consider even interviewing me. And it just went really quiet, didn't hear anything as you'd expect. And then one day out of the blue, somebody left. It was the lowest position within sales. I got an opportunity to have an interview, so I took the day off, went out and brought a suit from next wherever it was, and no, Slater's Menswear, yeah, that was in Birmingham. I don't know if the place is still going. And yeah, I had my moment. I had that moment that I dreamt of, which was I walked through the warehouse. The warehouse guys were like, they're never going to take you on. You belong with us. Went upstairs. God knows what I said. A huge amount of passion and enthusiasm, and I wanted to change the trajectory of my life. Must have come out, and I got the job. And then I was selling nail varnish up and down the country for 2 years.
You mentioned Stay Bright Windows. So had you had sales jobs before?
Yeah, so just between sort of like leaving school and jumping around, one of the jobs was, door knocking, Stay Bright Windows. And if you ever want to build any resilience, go and work for Stay Bright Windows, because nothing gets any harder when people are literally, slamming doors in your face.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get that job. How's that go?
So I think because it was a job that I just dreamt of changing my life, and that opportunity for me was too big to let anyone down, including myself, because it would change where I would end up. So I worked extremely hard, and within 6 months, I was the top performer within that whole business. And I was just in there before everyone else, leaving after everyone else, doing more miles, selling more product, because I couldn't lose it. This was it for me. I had to make this work.
Amazing. I love, because obviously you're a pretty grounded guy despite the success, and I think we're starting to hear where some of that comes from. But I'm right in thinking that first factory job was something like £50 a week.
Yeah, so the first one, I got £50 a week, and my parents, being my parents, all about work ethic and paying your way, my board was £25 a week. I was like, come on, give me a break. But yeah.
I love that. So Charlotte, bear that in mind. Hey, your way. Yeah, so you become top salesman, but then there's a cap. Presumably you can't. Where do you go after that?
Yeah, so I think because it was unexpected that I was going to perform, I suppose, and I performed at a level that no one was expecting. So then my commission was really high. But as a business, they decided that they couldn't have me earning more than the managers, which which is just backwards way of thinking. And but that's what's happened. That's what happened. So that led me to think, well, do you know what? I need to keep progressing my life, and there's things I want to do. I want to travel the world. I want this. I want the other. I want to one day say to my parents, look what I've done. I can look after you now. So there was that inner drive and desire, and there used to be a magazine called the Grocer magazine. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. And I was flicking through that, and there was various businesses advertising. There was pharmaceutical companies that I was trying to get a sales job with, and unless you had a degree, they wouldn't even interview you. So, I was struggling to sort of move out from where I was. And then there was an advert for Yell Group, Yellow Pages, which some of you might not remember anymore. But at that time, Yell were the sort of Google of today. So it was a £2.2 billion turnover business listed on the FTSE 100, making £800 million a year net profit. And at that time, they're the largest face-to-face sales force in the UK. And, back then, we're going back sort of 2003, 2004, the basic salary was sort of like double what I was earning, including my commission. I'm into cars, and you could have any car that you wanted. So I was like, wow, this is like, playing for Man City. And anyway, I sort of applied lied about my GCSEs because that was one of the criteria they didn't check, thankfully, which then got me a face-to-face interview. And they knocked me back. I was sort of 21. They said, look, you know, you've solved nail varnish. We've got the elite that, you know, apply for these roles. There's people that are always waiting to work for Yale because of the packages and the opportunity. We don't think you're ready for it. And I just kept pushing back. And over a year...
And you're 21 at this
I
point?
was, 21, yeah. Yeah, and then just over that year, I was interviewed by multiple managers, and again, I don't know what I said, but they gave me a chance and said, look, you're the youngest ever salesperson we've ever taken on as a business in a field sales role, and we're going to trial you out on sort of the lowest level within that role because it's quite a big risk for us. So anyway, got that job. I remember going down to the sales training down in Slough in London. They had a big hotel, and it was, you know, I don't know, 30, 40 salespeople within there. So every month they'd take on another 30 to 40. And I felt completely out of my depth because there were people that worked for much bigger organisations, people who worked for media businesses, performed at a high level, huge amount of ego. And I was the, you know, young, quietest person in the room thinking, bloody hell, I think you've oversold yourself a bit here and you're going to get found out quite quickly. But anyway, the same thing happened. And yeah, I worked extremely hard, you know, took on board all the training, that inner sort of fear of failure, you know, wanting to go back to my parents saying, you know, I've done this for you, wanting to change my life, huge opportunity I didn't want to lose. So over a 7-year period, I was promoted every year. I was the highest earner at my age, won all the awards, gold awards. Yeah, I had a really, really successful career.
Tell us a bit more about that. How did you find Yale as an organisation? Did a sales guys? I mean, you're competitive by nature, right? So, and here's this young kid,
Yeah,
waltzes in, having sold nail varnish. How'd that go down?
yeah. I mean, at that time, I mean, I describe Yale as being in the army. I mean, if you missed targets, you were out. So you had that sort of like fear that next month could be your last month. And then, yeah, you were surrounded with the best. There was a league table for absolutely everything. And if you didn't meet, you know, so many appointments a day, so many of those converted, revenue targets, multi-product targets, everything was measured. So in terms of structure, being corporate, disciplined, you know, that certainly opened my eyes really to a much larger organisation and how do these businesses of that scale, you know, operate. And it was really tough. It was really tough. Yeah, it was, you know, because also you're dealing with at the lower levels, you're dealing with builders, plumbers, roofers who think you're scum of the earth turning up in your brand new car. They don't turn up. Some of them have just come out of prison and, you know, they just work for themselves because they don't want to employ them. So the customer base, you know, yeah, they're not particularly polite to you. And when you're driving to North Wales from Manchester and they're not there, and you've got your A to Zs and you're trying to figure out how to get to these places in Abergele, it was, yeah, it was good. But again, it gave me that work ethic, discipline, structure, and you were rewarded handsomely for it as well. So, you know, unlike my other business where they capped the commission, it was like, you know, fill your boots, earn as much as you want.
So you were there 7 or 8 years.
7 years, yeah.
Takes you through most of the 2000s. At which point there's the internet is happening.
Yeah.
Right. There's Google becoming growing and becoming the search engine. We have things like Ask Jeeves back then and all this sort of stuff. So Yale's position is threatened. You're a Yale employee. You must have, but you're young and they're starting to try and take stuff online. But you must have been spotting that kind of culture clash.
Yeah, so I think there was a few things. So as I progressed up the ranks, I became sort of a key account manager looking after some of Yale's larger advertisers that were more sophisticated, and other agencies actually, other agencies in Manchester that looked after like the AA and people like that. And they were very sophisticated, so they'd have core monitoring in the adverts, and they'd say, look, you know, the number of inquiries that Yellow Pages is generating is in decline, and we're experimenting with other marketing channels online, and we're seeing better return. So I was hearing it because I'm sort of on the front line, hearing it from clients. And then I'll never forget the CEO at the time, John Condren, had everyone in Yell in a room, and he stood up and he was basically talking about Google had approached Yell to buy Yell. And he said, we will never sell to those internet geeks. We just don't need to. And that just, someone who just has no clue what's going on. So at that same time, Yell borrowed 4 billion and went out and brought more Yellow Pages directories in like Spain, South America, the US. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? He's never been out to see a customer in the last like 6 to 12 months. So I thought, you know what, the writing is on the wall here. I'm not in control. This isn't looking very pretty. I need to learn more about the internet. And Yell was, you're right, they were selling domain names. We were selling domain names at £40. We got Yell.com, and we were trying to sell adverts on Yell.com to try and shift some of that revenue over. So I thought, I need to get good at this. So what can I do? So in my spare time, I did a diploma in digital marketing, which is really difficult because I'm not academic. And I also decided that I was going to become the sort of Yell.com champion within the Yell group, to be positioned as the sort of digital expert. And then I thought, you know what? As I'm talking to more customers, they're saying, look, we've always relied on Yellow Pages. We'd like to do more online. We don't know what to do. So I saw an opportunity. I thought, you know what? I've got good relationships. I can see the trajectory of Yell. I'm being asked to help these people online. I'm doing a diploma in digital marketing. And, and if I'm brutally honest, I was like, you know what, by the time I'm 30, I want to set myself up, because I'm meeting these business owners, and I wonder one day whether I can be a successful business owner that, changes my life, my friends and family's life, and I can employ people and, grow a business. So I took made the difficult decision to leave Yell, which at that time, I was earning 6 figures, company car, £8 a day lunch allowance, box at Man United, I had all the benefits. And the day when all that went, and my partner Caroline's going, what the hell have you done? And then I'm literally, working out the back bedroom. And I think the relevant bit is, to sort of share with you guys, is I set up, and it was a fag packet. The business was called, when I say the business, it was me, I was a freelancer. It was called My Marketing Aid, and we literally did it on Caroline's mum and dad's sofa. What can we call this? And I put it in my brother's name, so Yell didn't know that I was setting up this limited company. And he still says, you owe me some money, because this has gone on to make a lot of cash. And that was it. I went out as a freelancer, and I was selling my time, which I know a lot of you guys will do, as a digital marketing consultant, helping businesses transition from Yellow Pages print traditional advertising to digital. A lot of people didn't have, like, say, websites, SEO, PPC. And then quite quickly, well, my first goal was, can I just survive, and can I make enough money to pay the bills? And I'm in my back bedroom. I've got to, like, lease a car, get out, meet people. And then I started recruiting freelancers to do the delivery, because I never built a website in my life. I've not produced a video. I didn't know how to, technically do on-site, off-site SEO. So which is why I say, having this kind of environment back then would have been really, really powerful, because I was on, people per hour and all that kind of stuff. And this would have been, really valuable.
So this is what, 2011?
This is back end of, May 2011. Yeah,
Something
May 2011.
like that. And MMA begins to grow.
Yeah, so MMA.
And you recruit, so you were using freelancers, but then you recruit in-house. Tell us about that journey. And I suppose for us, because you wouldn't describe yourself as a creative per se, although you obviously have creative ideas and are very entrepreneurial. The things you've built are creative by nature, but you could recognise a creative and the importance of it, right? So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so My Marketing Aid, which was this marketing consultancy working with small businesses around Manchester, helping them transition to digital web design and then performance stuff like SEO, PPC. So I was bringing on freelancers to do the delivery of the work, and I was using Basecamp. Do people still use Basecamp? And these people are dotted around everywhere. And then what happened was, so I'm in Manchester, and I was very late to the party because there was a lot of digital marketing agencies in Manchester. So I'm there thinking, well, this is good. I'm managing to pay the bills, but actually, I'm visualising different things with my life, and I want to be in a different place further down the line. What can I do? And January 2012, I pivoted from a marketing consultant to MMA Digital. And I suppose the key thing, and hopefully this will be of some value to you guys. So my marketing aid was dealing with, lawyers, builders, skip hire companies, people who fitted and maintained alarms, a whole host of SMEs in different sectors. I decided to focus on a niche and focus on one sector, because I was never going to become the biggest digital marketing agency in Manchester. As we know, there's some really big players. But could I become the biggest in a particular niche, and a niche that other creatives and digital people don't particularly want to work in, because it's called the legal sector. And MMA Digital was born in 2012, and our strapline, which I did come up with, online marketing for modern law firms. And I just worked relentlessly to build a profile. We won loads of awards, and we worked with like a third of the top 200 law firms. But you're right, what I then started to do is the top talented freelancers, I would offer them jobs in-house, and then I brought them in-house. And 50% of our revenue through that next 5-year period was actually content, video production, and in the legal market, you're trying to be creative, you're trying to retain talent you've brought in to say, look, we are in the legal sector, professional services, but we can do some cool stuff. So we did some really cool things, and we had Phil Howells, who was the creative director for, he was behind the Pepper Army campaign, a bit of an animal. So we managed to sort of get some good people in, and we did some really good work. And we sort of brought it in-house, and then we used freelancers just to scale up and down the business as and when we had work.
You sort of skirted or spat out a very quick sentence there that was something like, we worked with a third of all of the law firms in the UK?
So MMA Digital between 2012 and 2016. So it went from a startup to the go-to digital marketing agency in the UK for the legal sector. So we worked with a third of the top 200 law firms in the UK, and we won a huge amount of awards. I spoke at loads of events, professional services. So the profile, you would never have come across MMA Digital or me, but if you're in the legal sector, it would have been hard not to come across us. That was the niche that we owned, and we were the people that those law firms went to.
That's unbelievable market share in 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
Can you imagine going from a standing start to a third of the top 200 law firms? I think it's amazing. But it wasn't enough because for some reason you needed the next thing, or you needed to. So what happened next for MMA? You rebranded, or what came first?
So I suppose, so I was working relentlessly. So I was the sales guy out on the road across the country. I was 95 kilograms, drinking all the time, because a lot of these events, award ceremonies, is how you win the work. So it was like pretty relentless, and I thought, I'm probably going to have a heart attack if I carry on doing this.
And then you'd have heard Sarah's voice. As he breathed your last breath.
So it was a combination of, bloody hell, is this going to be the rest of my life? I'm probably not going to see my 40th birthday, as well as, I was the one, running around the country. And as a business model, and you guys will be familiar with this, when you do a lot of project-based work like video, income is quite lumpy. And when you've got overheads, and we had nice offices in Abney Hall, and you're employing some really good people, it can be a bit hand to mouth. And I was like, Jesus, this is quite scary at times. So I thought, can I build a business that, again, can take me to the next stage of my life, but also give me some time back, because the revenue of that business is recurring, and I'm just getting income coming through every month, a bit like a retainer, I'm sure you guys will be familiar with. So started again. So 2016, I saw an opportunity where the SEO PPC site, you know what I'm talking about, SEO PPC, don't you? All you guys, yeah, sorry. Side of my business was the only recurring revenue bit of my company. So these law firms, where we're running their pay-per-click and SEO campaigns, they're looking for new inquiries to come in that they can convert to cases that they can process. So I thought, do you know what? Could I take control here? And if I built my own websites and I ran my own campaigns with my team and I recruited new people, I built some clever technology, could I then generate inquiries and sell those inquiries to law firms instead of selling my time, and then charge a monthly sort of membership fee or a subscription, a bit like with Netflix and all these kind of subscription models. Because if I did that, that would absolutely change the game for me. And yeah, so I started that journey in 2016. I had to get the business then regulated because all of a sudden I'm in a regulated industry. It's now regulated by the FCA. I knew nothing about that, and somehow managed to navigate that and get the business regulated. And then I sort of went again. But what I did, we scaled the business down to 3 people. A lot of people left me actually because they didn't like the new vision of the company, and they always getting headhunted. So I had a tricky time with people that sort of were walking out the door. Scale back, moved to a shoebox. In fact, I went back to the bedroom, and then we went to the shoebox office in Didsbury, the Didsbury Business Centre. And yeah, the model was our own websites. We ran the campaigns, and we sold the leads to law firms. 2016 was startup phase, going again, selling leads. So what I basically did, I built multiple websites and I plugged those websites into Salesforce. And what happened was people would go onto Google, type in a legal service, land on one of my websites, fill in the form, and Salesforce then would distribute that inquiry to a law firm around the country. And I was being paid a monthly fee for a number of inquiries that month. What I hadn't realised, and we were talking before, what's been, you know, your failures, and there's been a few. This is probably the one where it nearly all went to shit. Was these inquiries that were going to law firms. The law firms, they're not that good at converting inquiries. They don't have a really good contact centre with customer-friendly people that would convert those inquiries, open 7 days a week. So these inquiries were going in. No one was dealing with them. And it was like the fastest fingers first with these inquiries as well, and they were really expensive to generate. So then all of a sudden, my reputation that I built over 5 years as like this, you know, digital guru within the legal sector was getting absolutely battered, because they were like, well, he's done this, and we're paying all this money, and the leads aren't converting. It's quite a small community, and people talk. So those 2 years were really difficult because I was winning a law firm, losing a law firm, trying to maintain my reputation. You know, I'm starting again with a new business and all the cash flow requirements. And I thought, you know what, this isn't going to live very long. What do I do? The only thing I can think about doing is maybe offering an additional service where we qualify those inquiries and then we sell qualified inquiries instead of raw inquiries. Is everyone still with me? Yep, cool. But I had no money. Because all my money was just being reinvested in the business. So then I approached a couple of outsourced call centres and said, do you mind trying to qualify these inquiries? Because I want to offer this proposition to the legal sector. And both were an absolute disaster for a number of reasons. My reputation is then taking, you know, further hammering. And I thought, what do I do here? So I had to raise some cash. So I sold my car and reinvested all the profits, sold some of my partner's you know, jewellery and bits and pieces to get some cash in, to then bring in-house our own call centre to qualify these leads, to offer this proposition to the market. And thankfully that worked. That really started to work. And then my sort of vision was, how do I go from, you know, this startup business, a bit like what I did with MMA Digital, can we be the largest player in this space, generating inquiries that are qualified to the legal sector? How do I go about doing that? And again, I wasn't the only person doing it. There was competitors much bigger than me. How do I go about raising the funds to sort of scale the business? And then I started having conversations and coffees with a lot of the corporate finance houses in Manchester, saying, look, you know, I want to move this on. I said, well, there's no point even having a conversation with any investors, particularly private equity, if you're familiar with private equity, unless your business is making a minimum £1 million profit a year. So that was my goal. How do I get my business to make £1 million? Because I want to have that conversation to move my business on. And then that, I could see that happening, and the run rate of the business was going to make £1 million. So 3 years ago.
Not turnover, profit.
Profit.
Okay.
Yeah, profit.
So what was turnover looking like?
Five then, yeah, 5. So, yeah.
So let me get this straight. 2016, you sort of standing start again.
Yeah.
And by when you're making 5 million?
By 2020, we're about 5. Yeah, we're 5 million turnover, doing $1 million EBITDA.
4 years.
Yeah.
It's all right.
It helped. I brought my car back. Yeah, and I then found myself in a place where I wanted to raise money. And again, I'm just being really open and honest with you. I wanted to de-risk myself because I'd invested so much in the business. So I wanted to take some money off the table, as the expression that they use. And I also wanted to put some money into the business because I wanted to recruit and grow faster. And I wanted to buy other companies. And, I couldn't do that on my own. So I needed substantial investment. So 2020, I instruct a corporate finance house, and then I start getting opportunities to pitch, a bit like Dragon's Den, but to private equity houses, and they're some of them just pretty aggressive, dismissive, quite brutal. So you meet a whole host of people. But I don't know if you remember what happened in 2020 around March time. So my face-to-face charm was gone, and and I'm literally it's all through Teams meetings, and anyway, the business then is projected to do about 2.5 million profit. So we're having a really good time, thankfully, and and cut a long story short, I had to navigate meeting private. Has anyone ever met private equity? So they're like the complete opposite of me. So Cambridge or Oxford graduated, don't sound like me, very sophisticated financial engineers. And it was a time in my life where it was just, am I going to be able to navigate this like marketplace, and are they going to just rob me because they're really smart, they do this for a living? We're from very, very different backgrounds. But thankfully we had a few offers, and coming down to relationships, I went with a company called Rockpool, and the numbers and everything to one side, I just felt that if I was letting someone into my business and I'd only ever been 100% shareholder, once the deal's done, are they still going to be the same person that's going to make sure no matter what, they're in the trenches with me when things are bad, and they're celebrating with me and opening a bottle of champagne or having a beer when things are good? And that led me to choose Rockpool and that particular partner, Guy Ellis. And we're still friends now. He's a really top guy. So, you can't ever forget the value of a relationship, and I went with those guys.
And so is that when it becomes Bloom?
Yeah. So what happened then was so the way that private equity works is you get investment into a business, and they're looking to sell the business in 3 to 5 years' time, and normally they're looking for a 3 to 5 times return. So Bloom was, MMA Digital was MMA Digital. We were this customer acquisition specialist in the legal sector, but we had to window dress the company to prepare it for the next sale. So that was looking at technology, the people in the business, growing out the management team so the business wasn't purely reliant on Dez, because I was wearing so many hats and everything was funneled through me. The name of the company, buying other companies, integrating them, driving the profitability to over 5 million, which is where we were getting it to. So then we 12 months afterwards we went from MMA Digital, and we did it at Home Cinema actually across the road. So it was quite nice. I parked at Q Park because it brought back some memories. We launched as Bloom, and the plan was we were becoming the biggest in legal, but could we replicate that model in other sectors? So I was looking to buy a lead generation business in the IFA space, and we were looking at other markets where we could just keep adding on, and hopefully one day take it internationally.
Amazing. Not many people grow and sell or get investment like that, but it then allows you some level of personal financial freedom, right? And then you grow again, you sell again. Those numbers aren't out there, but safe to say multiple tens of millions. From very humble beginnings. It's just an incredible and inspiring story. What's now the drive? Because you've sort of proven everyone wrong. You've proved to your parents that if they would accept it, you could buy them central heating. You've got the car. What keeps you? Because you could chill out, but there's something. What is it?
Yeah, so I think so when I did my first deal with Rockpool, so that completed in January 21, and if remember what I was just saying, normally it's 3 to 5 years before you do another deal, and we had a plan in place. And I got lucky really because we ended up selling the business a year on through a strategic buyer with a head turning number. So I'd gone from, you know, the rock pool deal and building out the team, which gave me freedom. So all of a sudden, I got really good people who were doing my PPC, SEO, finance, operations. So that freed up my time, which was good because I was like, great, I'm finally getting some time back to look after me, and that was brilliant. And then this second deal was unexpected. So all of a sudden, that happened and it completed quite quickly, and then a new group is formed called the Fletchers Group, where there's now, to put some numbers around it, there's 1,000 people, it'll do 120 million turnover in the next 12 months. It's got a full C-suite of people, so you know I'm not really required, and you know I'm still sort of a group non-exec. I'm an investor.
I mean, sorry to cut in, but you say that deal was done quickly. Typically, and the Rockpool deal was like an 18-month deal, right? That deal, the Fletcher's deal, was 6 days.
No, so what happened was it was just over 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah, so the Rockpool deal, from the initial sort of flirting, you know, is this the right sort of chemistry there, to doing all the due diligence, was, yeah, you're about sort of 12 to 18 month period. And the actual legal side of it took 9 months. So when we had the approach from Sun Capital, they're called the guys who own Dreams. They're a big, massive American private equity house, 8 billion under funds. So it's just another level again. And yeah, the approach happened on the back of being really pissed at the F1, and a conversation started where I took a client who were backed by Sun Capital. So that was the Sunday. Got really pissed. Would you be interested in selling the business? I've got a plan in mind, so probably not, but you're a client, so I don't want to offend you, but please don't kick the tyres, because at that point we were looking to buy another business. I'd actually found a replacement for me that would lead the next transaction 3 to 5 years down the line. So, so there was a lot happening, and yeah, by the Friday they'd put in an offer, and because they really wanted the company, I had particular things that I wanted, and I also wanted it to be done quickly because the last one took a long period of time, and I thought August is a quiet month, and they said they could turn it around in 4 weeks, and to be honest, that's bullshit, because my last one, the legal bit, took 9 months, but yeah, 6 weeks they turned it round. So it was like, wow. And I was literally, when I was rebranding and repositioning the business as Bloom, behind the scenes, all that was going on. I was like, this is mental.
And the reason I highlight that is because, you know, Dez will humbly say, "Oh, I was so lucky this happened." People don't come after your business and acquire it within 6 weeks unless you've built something pretty amazing and they have the appetite and can see the potential in what's coming next. So I just think it's incredible. But I cut you off. Talk to us about that drive. What is it that keeps you?
Yeah, so I think so I did the second deal, and you know, come September this year, that'll be 2 years from exchange. So what happened was my sort of involvement within Bloom, when did the first deal, reduced because we built out the team. Then the second deal happened and I got even less to do. Most of that was my decision because I wanted to take a further step back. And then, you know, I'm sort of 39, 40, and my friends are my friends, and my friends are, you know, factory workers, some are professionals, some are creatives, and you find yourself, you know, what do I do with my time? So there was an element of that. There's always an element of I never want to end up where I was when I was in and out of foster care, where you just don't know, you know, where you're going to be next. So there's always that fear that will never leave me. And I suppose it was the thing that I loved about Bloom. If anyone ever, you know, walks into Bloom, it's such a diverse workforce, and it's interesting. The people at Bloom that join just assume that Dez has been to university, Dez has had this amazing life, and we can never be like him. And when they hear the story, which I've only recently started to share because I felt like I've achieved something now to share, it inspires them. And people in Bloom, you know, there are people that have been abused, there are people that have had really tough starts in life, and it's quite a warm feeling where you're giving them a chance regardless of background, and it's like the rest is down to you. I'm not going to, you know, you've got to work hard and you're going to have to demonstrate capability, you're going to have to perform, but, you know, I won't judge you based on what's happened in the past, because people gave me an opportunity, and you know, why shouldn't I do that back? So yeah, that's, you know, money to one side, that's a really nice feeling when you can do that, and and people are like, you know what, you've actually given me a reason to focus on my career and try and develop within this business. And I've seen people get promoted, and you know, on paper you would never have taken them on or promoted them, but they're absolutely flying. So it's you feel quite proud about that.
And I think with the two new ventures, you see the sort of two extremes of Dez Derry in a way.
It's a really good way of looking at it.
Because
yeah,
you have the high-end travel experience. You know, you'll be at Monaco and the Grand Prix around the world, the boxing in Abu Dhabi, whatever those things are, flying by private jet, all of that, just incredible luxury stuff. But on the other hand, you have Fight Division, which I want you to tell us more about, but is this exciting combat sport, which is a personal interest anyway. But at the heart of it is to help underprivileged people who, for many of them, combat sport is the only way out of their situation. You said, I had a vision to change the trajectory of my life. That is what you're building, really, isn't it? A way of changing the trajectory of people's lives. And I think in those two ventures, you have this, like, the two sides of Dez Derry. So tell us a little bit more about Fight Division. How did it come about, and what is it doing?
Yeah, so my partner Caroline, I first met her doing martial arts, Aikido. So you know, when I was 19 and she was 17, and I started Aikido in Burntwood where I was, mainly because I was scared of getting beaten up by the National Front, and it was I need some form of self-defense because one day I am going to get my head kicked in. So anyway, that was my reason for doing it. And I met my partner, and then she moved to Manchester, and that's why I'm up here. And then when I sort of moved to Manchester, I was focused in on building my business. My health was neglected, and I put on a huge amount of weight. I was drinking because a lot of these events were, you know, very a lot of alcohol was consumed. And then 10 years ago, one of my mates said, "Look, in Stockport, there's a Thai boxing gym, Master Sken. Master Sken's a bit of a legend in himself. He brought Muay Thai to the UK in the 70s. You should go, and you know, you're getting fat, and also be good for you mentally." And I used to, as I say, I used to do martial arts. I thought, you know what, this is just what I need, mentally more than anything, as well as all the physical benefits, because I need something where I can concentrate that puts all the dark stuff that goes on with running a business to one side, and that's, you know, 2 hours for me. So anyway, I was a bit apprehensive because I thought, you know what, I'm going into like a combat sports environment. Is it going to be full of meatheads? And it's not in a pretty place. I mean, again, you know, windows need replacing and all sorts of stuff. But what I found in there was a very, you know, warm, welcoming, really nice group of people. They kept all the idiots out. And what I also saw was people like me. So yeah, you're right, you've got this extreme where you've got, you know, this side of Dez who loves to enjoy his life because he's got no kids to leave his money to, so he likes going backstage at Glastonbury and doing all that kind of stuff. Why not? And then you've got the other side, which is where I'm from. And in that environment, you've got a lot of people from ethnic minorities, a lot of people who are not academic, and they're looking to, you know, Niall will talk about in a second, they're trying to move away from that gangland culture and the parks, the drinks, the knives, the drugs, and all the rest of it. And they're in that environment where they're getting discipline, foundation, they're looking after themselves, they're being respectful. And I just saw a load of people like me. And anyway, I've been training now, and I've been having one-to-ones. It was with Master Sken, then another instructor, and then Niall Brown, who I'll talk about in a second. And yeah, in the week, that's where I'll go. And in fact, I'm there this afternoon. I sort of train there every week. And in my diary, that is one thing that never moves. So the way that Fight Division came about is the beauty with these gym environments. Does anyone do combat sports, by the way? Does anyone do any kind of like in the past? Yeah. Yeah, and is your experience been it's a really nice, warm environment when you're there if you're in the right gym with good people? Yeah. So anyway, I'll be sort of going to this gym, and the thing with the gym is you don't really know what anyone does outside of the gym. So people don't know what I do outside of them, which is brilliant. And you know, you don't judge people, and you're just training, and you're getting beaten up by 20-year-olds, and it's good. You actually brought down to earth. I would say it really brings me down to earth because you've got like, some of these, 15, 16-year-olds, they're absolutely incredible and their discipline, their work ethic and the sacrifices where they just train and train and train. It's very transferable to business. So anyway, Master Sken, who founded the gym, worth looking up. Some of the stuff he can do is just out of this world. He moved to Ludlow. He's in his 60s, and then Niall Brown, who's 26, became his sort of number one student. So Niall is a UK Muay Thai champion, very humble, very, very nice guy, from an ethnic minority background. And I'm getting really close with Niall because he teaches me and he's, torments me on a weekly basis. And we've become friends, there's a bit of an age gap. And then Miles, who's one of Niall's friends, on the side, he is the creative. So he worked at Salford University doing creative, but in his spare time, he was building a brand called Fight Division and also Last Bastion, where he's going out to all the gyms and he's interviewing the fighters and he's producing some really good content. He's got merchandise. And Niall basically said to me, because he's got to know a little bit about me outside of the gym, because we have one-to-ones on a weekly basis, and he knew about my sort of journey with Bloom, and I was selling, so I share quite a bit with him now, and vice versa. And he said, well, Miles has got this business called Fight Division. He's looking for investment, and would you be willing to have a chat with him? And if I'm honest, I'm thinking I don't really know what Miles does outside of when I see him in the gym. What is this like fat packet thing going to be? Let's see. Let's give him the time of day, because people have given me the time of day. And what he presented to me was like, wow, this is really good quality. You've been doing this while you've got a young family, doing this in your spare time. You've got the work ethic. And where's this coming from? And he said he's interviewing a lot of these fighters, and one in Muay Thai, there's just no money in it. It's very, very under-resourced. There's no funding at all. And you've got these guys and girls who are putting their lives on the line, trying to change their lives. And he interviews one fighter who wins a belt. And he said, what are you doing tonight to go out and celebrate? And the fighter was like, well, I'm a welder. I've got to go back to work tomorrow. And they've just won this title and the grit determination to get there. So anyway, Fight Division is a way of up-and-coming combat athletes to try and monetize some of their social media following by producing content and having merch that there's collaborations, and we're doing pay-per-view. So a lot of these small hall shows, we'll live stream the shows, we'll host them on the Fight Division platform, and we want to build it, and we're recruiting people. So anyone that's got experience in editing, content production, all of that stuff, it's a media marketing business. And at the heart of it is, if I can now do something to help people who have got a similar background to me, and when I see Niall in particular, who's now a professional boxer at 11 fights, he's about to hopefully make the big time. And his goal, and you should get him up here actually, he wants to be the first person in his family to ever have a mortgage.
Wow.
And to see that guy, the work ethic, the sacrifice, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, trains twice a day, really humble, really grounded, extremely talented. And it just inspires me on a weekly basis. And there's lots of those individuals within that community that are going to struggle to be in, normal kind of jobs and professional careers. So, it is a way out. It is a way out for them as well. So if we can really scale Fight Division, so now all the people, there's other founders have come from the gym or people who train. So all of us have got some kind of combat sports experience, which is great, a huge amount of passion. And if we grow the company, then we give jobs and we do similar things that I've done with Bloom, as well as helping all these fighters who they only get paid. So I'll give you an example. So Niall's last fight, which was on Channel 5, boxing, so he's converted from Muay Thai to boxing because there's no money in Muay Thai, at the top level, £250 a fight. And if you ever watch a Muay Thai fight, it's pretty brutal. So he moved over to boxing, and his last opponent, he had to pay for the opponent. He had to pay for his accommodation, had to pay for his food. And that was a Channel 5 fight.
Wow.
How does that work? How does that work? And in the interim, he relies on sponsors, and I sponsor him and I try and get him other sponsors because it's hand to mouth. So when you see, Tyson Fury or Ricky Hatton or whoever it might be, Amir Khan, they are the 0.00001%. The rest of them, they're fighting for their lives. It literally is, fighting to change and survive.
Fight Division, follow on social media. If you're talking about this talk on LinkedIn and stuff, then please do tag Fight Division in, because spreading the word for that is a good thing, I think. We're coming into land. I have a couple of things to ask you. One, you can hear Dez's story, and obviously, background aside, it sounds like doors just opened and all that sort of stuff. But you described a couple of moments when you nearly lost everything with outsourcing those call centers and things like that. You also had this let's call it a speed bump, but Abney Hall, when you moved there. Just tell us what happened there.
Yeah, so I wanted to scale the company. So this is when we were a digital marketing agency, and I was bringing people in-house, and I wanted to recruit the best people. So I went out and brought in animators and project managers and designers, and I took a big step forward, which was moving from low overhead office to Abney Hall. And if you know Abney Hall, there's a beautiful building there. Bruntwood took it over, and we took on a beautiful suite, similar kind of thing to this. So I threw a huge party, all the clients came, it looked the part. And on following that week, on the Monday, I was presenting at a big event down in London to the legal sector to drum up new business. And that weekend, we'd kitted out with Macs and everything else, and we had CCTV and alarms, and we were robbed. And a bunch of scallies. Abney Hall, unfortunately, is in Abney Hall Park, so there's no sort of manned security. We had it all on CCTV, and I got that call on the Sunday morning, come down to the office, everything had gone. And at that time, I'd sort of bankrolled everything. I'd taken a big step forward with salaries, increased overheads with the offices. I had this big event in London to drum up business, and we talked about this before. Insurance claims take months, and we hadn't backed up a lot of the video content we were producing. It was all on hold. Everything had gone. And I was there down in London at the RBS building, of all places, presenting to all these law firms how great MMA Digital was back then, where behind the scenes, the windows were all smashed in at the office, all the equipment had gone. I got no money. And a lot of these customers are going to be asking for their projects. Where are they? Where's the video content you've produced? Where's the websites? And we're like scrambling around trying to figure out what we can try and download and trying to find. And that was really difficult, because for however many weeks until we could get insurance sorted, I was having to beg the neighbours, the other businesses, to lend us equipment just to sort of like keep the business ticking over. And every night I was locking the office going, this is going to be the last day today. And when you've got the landlord chasing you, you've got wages coming, you've got VAT that needs paying, PAYE, it's dark. And the downside with being a single shareholder is you can't share that with your people. It's all on you. And the only person I could really share that was with my partner, who's also then going, shit, is this the end of what's going to happen? Is this going to impact us and our mortgage and all the rest of it? So very, very dark. So I think if you ever see a founder that's been successful, you never see the really dark periods, and there are some horrific periods. So if someone does make it, just try and think about that, because it's very, very difficult.
And that was another occasion where the car went.
Yeah.
You had to sell the car.
Yeah.
Your partner's jewellery.
Yeah. It's cash. Yeah. It's the number one killer of any business. And, again, when it's your company and your bankroll and everything, it's you sort of put a debt against your property and all the rest of it. You take a huge amount of risk. And I suppose that's what separates people, isn't it? Are you willing to take the risk? Some of it's naivety, where you just see where you want to take your life, and
Well, I think, and perhaps this is where we'll end, and there might be a couple of questions. But a key theme for you in terms of planning where you're going and stuff has been visualization. So we hear about that with athletes, and having a real picture and a vision board of your life and what you want it to be has been it's a practice that you do, and even now, right? Mm-hmm. Just tell us about that, and perhaps you can leave us with that as a...
Has anyone ever done it? Has anyone sort of visualised? Yeah. Yeah. So, and you're right, athletes. And Niall, we talk about this quite a lot when he talks about winning that world title, when he's, come out of the ring and he's won that fight. So, yeah, it's a underestimated technique. And in its simple form, it's just picturing day in, day out what you want to achieve, and whether that's, winning a world title, whether that's, for me, I remember, I'd not been on a plane until I was 19, and me and my mate went to Faliraki, and it was just having a holiday and going abroad. So that was like, what do I need to do to earn enough money to go on holiday? But yeah, to sort of move it on, it's having basically like a storyboard, and that storyboard could be cuttings of things that you want to do. So it's an experience you want with your partner, something you want to do for your family, an achievement for your business. It might be, it sounds really crude now, but last year I was like, can I get a six pack at 40? It's gone now. And that was like, what do I need to do to get, what weight do I need to get to, and what would I look like? So it's things like that. And so for me, the dark periods, that's the only thing that's kept me going. And I have little references where on my phone, it should be my girlfriend, but it's not. It's one of my cats, and that cat is at my place in the Lake District, because my dream was to one day have a house, because we do a lot of hiking and cycling, and I wanted a house in the Lake District. So, it was just that's what I've done it for. It's to give me those experiences and then share that place with my friends and family, and it gives you a drive when things aren't going your way. And yeah, I would certainly think about doing that. And as I say, have a little references that remind you. But maybe a year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year vision board. What you're doing it for? What do you want? And it's not all material stuff. Sometimes it could be having more time. Like for me, go and see my mum and dad at the caravan. They were in their 80s, and the business has allowed me to pick and choose. When I see them, and I've got that flexibility, and try and convince them to have some central heating.
We're all. I mean, you're looking at, probably 30 micro businesses, or in some cases bigger. But one thing I've heard you say before is that every founder should be able to sell. But as creatives, it's often the bit we're not as good at. Maybe because we're so linked identity-wise to what we produce that selling it feels like almost a betrayal, or that it's just too much of a transaction for, we're too exposed to rejection, aren't we? I'm probably looking at other people that are better at this than me, but I'm like, if you don't buy off me, then, there's an intrinsic rejection of what I've produced. So have you any tips as Yell's top salesman? Do you have any tips for us, these guys? Like, you must have picked up a thing or two over the years.
Go and work for Stay Bright Windows. You'll be hard as nails then.
Well,
yeah,
there is something in that, isn't there?
there is, yeah. Depends, your backgrounds. There's things I had to do that I wouldn't have chosen to do, but you have to do it to survive. So I think there's, so anything that you can do that makes you feel a bit uncomfortable and takes you out your comfort zone will build a level of resilience. But I would say I'm actually, interestingly, with Fight Division. So Miles, who's the founder that I've backed, he's a creative, and I'm trying to bring him along on this journey. And just some simple things. I mean, relationships, coming back to, doing my private equity deals, I did it based on, in the end, on a relationship. Over delivering, under promising, professionalizing what you do. So for example, Miles, he's got like, people doing all the live streaming and people working, the freelancers, but there's no like contracts in place. It's not being professionalized. The way things are scheduled, there's no like Trello or anything like this. And I'm like, you've got to treat this like someone's buying off you or you're selling to someone. It needs to look high quality. So everything that you do, like when I sold Bloom, why did people pay a lot of money for Bloom? Some of it down to my charm and charisma, but predominantly I built a really good high quality business with really good people that had the ability to grow. So I think, as a freelancer, as a micro business, quality has to be really, really important. And you don't need to, you don't need to be that double glazing salesperson. I think, good portfolio of work, be on time for your meetings, because again, not all creative people, but they can be a bit, I found in my experience a bit late. And then, over deliver, and just try and be as professional as you can with, contracts, the emails, the structure of that content, templates. What would I say? try and look like a much bigger business, even when you're not. And the expression that I used with Miles recently, when I was, my marketing aide working out my bedroom, or when I had a Regis office where you just sort of dipped in and out and used a hot desk, is, sort of a little bit of fake it till you make it. So, if you're looking for bigger contracts and bigger client wins, just try and make yourself look like and behave like a business that's already where you want to take your business if part of your ambition is to grow. And I think you'll find that, you'll probably get decent client suppliers. And if you try to recruit people, it's much easier to recruit if you look like, professional, established, a business that's a bit punching above its weight is probably I would leave with, punching above your weight.
Brilliant. And yeah, I think that professionalism is a really good thing to leave us with. I think our experience of freelancers, for what it's worth for you guys in the room, is the ones that really set apart are the ones where communication's really good all the time, because plenty of us get overwhelmed, and that's when we go quiet and hide a bit, and all of those sorts of things. That's natural. But if you have the process and professionalism to keep the communication high, then
sorry, one small tip which might be useful. Does people have any issues getting paid on time? Is that ever a thing? Yeah. So sorry, James, drop you in it. So what I found was, as the person who was building the relationships, who was then the same person, this was a bit of an eye-opener when I left Yale, which is a big organisation. All of a sudden I'm running my business, which is me, and you're having to win the work, deliver the work, make sure you get paid, and do all the compliance that goes with running a company. And I found it quite hard when people weren't paying me on time. Like, why aren't you paying me? I don't understand this. Why haven't I been paid? So you feel a bit awkward and embarrassed to sort of say, look, we've got a really good relationship, but you've not paid me. So one thing I did, and again, you might already be doing this, I set up a finance @ email address, which was me behind the scenes. And they're like, oh, bloody hell, we're getting all these automated reminders. Oh, do you know, I'll have a word with them back at the office. And it sort of separated that conflict. And if you find that could be a good, useful little tip where you've got some people where you don't want to damage the relationship. You need to get paid. They should be paying you. It's a bit awkward. So bringing this third party, which is whatever you want to call it, @ whatever your business is called.
Just on that as well, I've recently switched to Go Cardless as well. For like direct debit. So just as soon as they sign the contract, just send over the mandate, and I've had getting paid has been so much quicker for me.
Yeah, we used to use Go Card. Brilliant, yeah. Absolutely brilliant. They went through a similar thing. So Go Cardless, when they were setting, they got robbed. And the founders, imagine you're dealing with direct debits for all these businesses. The business got robbed with all that sensitive information, and they nearly went under, and they've survived it and go through. But that's a really good tip, actually. Yeah.
We've got time for maybe one or two questions.
You've spoken about how in your childhood you went through sort of a lot of stress. There's been a lot of problems, etc. that you went through. As someone who's so I'm currently a founder, so I'm thinking possibly I'm going to break through at some point and have a lot of capital, etc. Maybe, and have kids. How do you introduce conflict to kids, if that makes sense? Once you're comfortable, how do you start introducing conflict in a natural way that's not damaging to them, to build their character? And part of the answer that I got from you was maybe put them in martial arts classes, etc. That could be one safe way of introducing conflict. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I haven't got any kids, so I'm probably not the best person for that.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
You're not going to struggle with conflict with kids. Let me say that. Whatever environment you put them in, you're gonna have conflict. But I actually think, I won't speak. I don't have the same stories, but I have my own stories, and for my kids, there is enough conflict online, in culture, the stuff I'm so glad I never had to deal with, like WhatsApp at school when kids are, if I got bullied at school, it was done at 3:30. I didn't have to think about it till 9 o'clock the next day. Now they don't get any respite from it. There's things like that constantly. I think image. I didn't even know if I knew what I even looked like until I was about 14. But they sure do, and there's seems open season on people commenting on it as well. So, I mean, apart from obvious socioeconomic type of stuff, I think our kids are going to come up against the kind of conflict and need to build resilience in a way that probably none of us have had to do so far.
And I think that just on that, so, you know, Master Sked Academy, it's always walk away. It's always walk away, just to sort of like, you know, you got people in there who can really look after themselves, and they're taught just to walk away. It's just not worth getting involved in that conflict if you can avoid it. So I think in those situations, yeah, that's the sort of the number one thing. Yeah, we're giving you the tools to protect yourself or to compete to change your life, but actually the number one thing is just walk away from those situations, because, you know, we'll hear what goes on now, and it is worrying. Yeah, it is worrying. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Just on your point on niching down, which I thought was really interesting, because there is a lot of talk within a lot of like the digital services space, especially after, you know, lockdown, COVID, where there's a lot of digital businesses that entered the market. So obviously, like, really interesting that you niche down to law. In terms of like niching, like, how do you kind of approach it? Because just from my perspective, I have a background in like e-commerce
Okay.
and
Yeah.
a little bit in like travel as well. So
Okay.
I tend to, like, when I'm on client calls, and a lot of my case studies are revolved around that. But that's not to say that I only take on those type of clients. If
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That's just who I the case studies for. Do you think like there's almost like an art to picking a niche? Almost like, is e-commerce still too broad and travel too broad? Do I need to go like fashion e-com, or like, you know, homeware e-com, or like, what's your thoughts on that?
So it's a really good question, actually. So I think it depends what's on your vision board, so what you're trying to
Yeah.
achieve within your life and your business. But I would look at size of market opportunity. So if I think of some of the conversation I have with private equity now, they look at the size of the market opportunity, who's in there at the moment, and if part of your goal is to, you know, recruit, build, and scale and sell a business, then I would look at niche. But what you sort of end up doing is, even with my business, is, you know, behind the scenes, I'm still doing a little bit of project work while I'm repositioning, because you need cash flow. But I think with e-com, I mean, yeah, that's such the whole thing is huge, isn't it? I mean, the size of that globally. I would certainly think about niching there. If part of your, you know, your sort of personal goal and ambitions is to get to a point where someone's going to buy the business, and you know, I can tell you that 9 out of 10 private equity houses, as soon as they have like a criteria, you know, one of them being, is it a niche sector? Tick, and then they look at the size, the opportunity, the management team, the recurring revenue, and etc. etc. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, something like homeware. But make sure it's big enough. Make sure if it's big enough to achieve what you want to personally achieve.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, what would your approach be to like going after? Would it just be like LinkedIn, like posting constantly about homeware within ecom, or
Yeah,
website?
yeah, so with legal for me, because it's quite a traditional market, it was that, you know, those 5 years, it was networking, events, speaking at events, getting the opportunities to be associated with other suppliers within that industry, sponsoring events. We used to give away free video content production for a lot of the award ceremonies in the legal sector, because it'd be co-branded as, you know, Barker Brooks and MMA Digital, whatever legal sector event. So it depends on the sector whether you can, if you can do a lot of it online, brilliant. With me, it was a lot of on the road tarmac, because the sector was relationship driven and it brought through traditional B2B channels. So maybe look at what are the channels that are going to get you to the decision makers. And yeah, LinkedIn and everything else feeds into that. But if it's a sector where, you know, there's still a lot of exhibitions and events where you've just got to physically be there, because, you know, looking at someone in the eyes is really, really valuable. Then you can use other channels to follow up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, last question.
So in your journey, from this side, it looks like it's a scale. So it's always more. What's next? What's the next step? What's the next level? So did you feel, or are you feeling right now at some point like it's enough? I mean, it's not just I have enough. It's like I'm enough. I'm cool. I mean, why I'm looking for more, or I don't know if that makes sense.
It's a really good question. I'm actually going through that right now, because you know, even having this opportunity to come and do this, you know, I'm rusty. I've not been out speaking at events and things. It was really nice to be able to reconnect with you guys because it's bringing me back to, you know, when I was in your position. But I think it's a combination of things. It's sort of like, you know, I don't want to damage my reputation that I've built. You know, Fight Division has to be successful. You know, the Travel Scene group of companies has to be successful because people forget Dez was the founder of Bloom. He's now in these new ventures. So you create an environment where your reputation's on the line. So there's that driving you, that fear of failure. And as I say, you know, probably a little bit unique to me is when you're sort of like ripped in and out of foster care. I'm you know, relatively young still as well. I'm sort of like 42, and I think what I've discovered, and again, this is probably a different conversation, but when you're sort of chasing something and then you achieve it, and I achieved mine at a, you know, decent age, but then the network of people around you, your friends, are still in the same position, and you've not got kids. You know, I've gone through some, like, you know, weird as it sounds, you have some dark times because, you know, you sat in those coffee shops on your own and you have no purpose. And you're like, I need a purpose, but actually I'm fortunate now where I can do something I'm passionate about, which actually means something to me, you know, because I get investment opportunities, which is like, you know, roller shutter doors, and forgive, you know, everyone's involved in roller shutter, but I'm like, why do I want to get involved in that? That doesn't fulfill me at all. So you still need, you know, fulfillment and purpose. And, you know, when I do something with the Travel Scene business or Fight Division and it adds some value, or we take someone on and they're like really grateful for that opportunity, it makes you just, you know, feel like you're doing some good in the world still. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I think you'd agree, an amazing story, an amazing man. So why don't we thank Dez?
Thank you, Anthony.